I recently had a discussion related to the jealous husband provision of Numbers 5. I did a video earlier about that, and I'll put the link to that in the description. The issue that was brought up was what happens to the man who falsely accuses the woman. And in that previous video, I referred to the shame and humiliation that would come upon him for this, but nothing else. This recent discussion brought up questions about whether there was a distinction in how the courts handled breaking laws such as bearing false witness versus the priests handling the law such as this provision. So we'll look into that in this video. First point I would bring up is that any law can be applied justly or unjustly. So much depends on how the priests would enforce this provision. If indeed anyone ever invoked this provision, and we have no evidence that anyone ever did, and I pointed out in my argument there would be that it acted as an effective deterrent against men bad-mouthing their wives, because this was their remedy to invoke this test. It wasn't to go tell all their friends, all her friends, negative things about her that they couldn't prove. But the risk to him was very great, I argued before, that he would be humiliated before his fellow men if his wife was found to be not guilty. And for her to be found guilty, he was relying on a miracle, the miracle that dust from the tabernacle floor would cause terrible destruction to the woman's body. If we read Jesus' commentary on the law, it becomes clear that it was never the intent that the judge or the priest turn off his brain and just rush to judgment. When the woman was caught in adultery and brought to Jesus, they wanted a quick answer of, do we stone her or not? Jesus didn't do that. He wasn't going to give them a quick answer. The first thing he did was challenge the accusers before he addressed the woman herself. And he told them, he that is without sin among you, let him cast the first stone. And they all walked away. They walked away because they knew they too were sinners. Once they were gone, he spoke to the woman. He said, where are your accusers? Did anyone condemn you? No one, Lord. And he said, neither do I condemn you. Go and sin no more. Now, Jesus didn't disregard the law there. The only way they could punish her was if they had at least 2 witnesses. And there were 0 because they all left. So if a man brought his wife to the priest and said, I suspect she's cheating on me, I don't have the proof, so let's do this test. It isn't for the priest to just rush and let's run and go get the dust quickly and drink this down so we can figure this out. A lazy, unjust priest might do that. But if the priest is paying attention to the rest of the law, he must know that he can't just go rush and do that. He could go rush and cram as much dust and dirt and grime and whatever he could find on the tabernacle floor into a small amount of water or a large amount of water and force it down her throat. But that's an unrighteous priest doing that. Because the priest is under other commands, such as love your neighbor as yourself. Now, if he were falsely accused of something, now obviously he doesn't know whether the woman is guilty or not, he wouldn't want it rushed to judgment to say he must be guilty. Let's make it as disgusting as possible. He would want to be treated gently and kindly, but still within the provision of the law. If it ever got to the point of making the drink, he could get a decent amount of water and just get a very small amount of dust from the tabernacle floor, because it doesn't say how much. And since it's a miracle that's being asked for here, God can make the miracle happen with just a very small amount of dust, so he can love his neighbor as himself, make it the least unpleasant for the woman as he can. But before doing that, he can challenge the accuser. He could say something like, are you really sure you want to do this? Are you prepared for the possibility that you're wrong? Are you confident that you're going to get this miracle here? Are you prepared for it to be reported all over the land to your family, friends, business associates, and everyone else that you falsely accused your wife and she was found not guilty? The priest can also ask, Are you willing to be subjected to the law of bearing false witness if it turns out that she's not guilty? Think long and hard before you do this. Why not just trust your wife? It's possible that the man might be so arrogant as to accept the false witness consequences. But let's assume he doesn't. He may be genuinely uncertain as to whether his wife's cheating on him. He might want her to be not guilty. Or perhaps, as the person that I was talking to pointed out, the false witness provision may not apply here, since he's not saying, I saw her do this or that. He's just suspicious. She might be right. I don't know, because no one ever, in any records that we have, invoked this provision, so we don't know. It's a terrifying provision for the one who invokes it, as much as for the woman who's forced to drink the drink. Even if the man is right and knows he's right, he's still depending on a miracle. Does he really have that much faith? Such a man has likely never personally witnessed a miracle. Few people have that much faith, especially corrupt people. Okay, let's say the man decides he still wants the test. The priest could next turn to the woman and ask her, if he's willing to drop this, are you willing to forgive him? Perhaps if she says she is, then that might soften his heart. It may not. It's possible this could be resolved with mediation, such as I've proposed, or something else. Now, she might not be willing to forgive him. She knows she's innocent. She might be so offended by his accusation that she says, bring it. Make the drink right here. And the priest would ask, are you willing to bear the consequences if you're lying? And she says, yes. Amen, and so be it. And then she might chug down the drink like people do today with a glass of whiskey. It's not obvious necessarily that the dirty water is less pleasant than the whiskey. So she drinks the mildly dusty water, and they wait and see if the man who accused her is going to get the miracle he's been looking for. If there's a righteous priest and no miracle, she leaves vindicated and her husband is humiliated far and wide. Would this happen like I said? I don't know, because there is no record of anyone ever invoking this test. Apparently, most if not all men were too terrified of this provision to ever invoke it.